Okay, hey guys, so this is, oops, sorry, forgot to shut that on. This is going to be video on 2-1. We're going to be working on our distance formula and our midpoint formula. So the nice thing about this is just a formula. It's a plug and play. You know exactly what to do because it tells you what to do. I'm going to zoom that in a little bit. So before I go into that, I'm going to review. We're going to be doing in 2 and in 3, in chapters 2 and 3, we're going to be doing a lot of graphing. So you might want to go back and get some review on the coordinate plane. Remember, this number line that goes vertically up and down is my y-axis. And then the horizontal line, that's my x-axis. The two lines intersecting create 4 quadrants, and this is my quadrant 1. And remember both the x is always first, and the y are positive values, right? Because you're on the right side of x and you're on the upside of y. So both of those are positive. And then it's a C. It just goes to the left. This is my quadrant 2. Now I'm still on the top side of y, but I'm now on the left side of x. So I have passed the origin and gone to the negatives. So when I'm here in quadrant 2, my x is negative and my y is positive. Just like a C coming down. 1, 2, this is my quadrant 3, right? I should have put that in Roman numerals, 3 I's. Okay, so now I'm on the left side of the x and I'm on the downside of the y. So here, when I'm in quadrant 3, I know that the x is negative and the y is also negative. Last but not least, quadrant 4. I went to the right side of my x-axis. Now here's my origin, so now here I'm on the right. That makes the x positive again, and the y is negative because I'm on the down side. So if I were to graph the coordinate point, -4, 7, remember the x is always the first and the y is always the second. So if I have -4, 7, that means I'm going to go left 4 and up 7. So that tells me that I'm going to be in quadrant 2. Left 4, I don't think I can get that one on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and up 7 would be up there somewhere, right? All right, then if it's +2, +3, my x is a +2, my y is a +3, so 2 and 3, and I'd plot that point. Right 2, up 3, positive, positive. And then if everybody is negative, -1, -4, that, I didn't mark this as quadrant 1, quadrant 3, where everybody is negative, both negative. I'd be left 1 and down 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And over here, if I had my last point maybe was 3, -2, I've got a positive x and a negative y. So I'm going to go to the right 3 and down 2. Okay? All right, so that's just a little bit remember when kind of thing. With the distance formula, if you're like on a graph with this distance formula, remember if you've got a vertical line or a horizontal line, you can count the distance. Like this would be the quadrant, the coordinate -1 on my x and positive 1 on my y. And this would be the coordinate 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1 on my x still, but 4 on my y. And all I'd have to do is, okay, 4 minus 1 is 3. 1, 2, 3. The distance of that line is equal to 3. Same thing if it's horizontal. I've got 1, we're in quadrant 1, so everybody's positive, right? So 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So x is 1, y is 6. X is 1, 2, 3, 4. Y is still 6. 1 minus the, or 4 minus the 1 is going to give me 1, 2, 3. The distance is 3. Okay, so the thing is that when it comes to my slanted lines, not vertical, not horizontal, but slanted, I can't count. One of the things I could do if it's on a graph is I could use my Pythagorean theorem, right? I could say, all right, the distance of this is 1, 2, 3. So A side, remember A and B are my legs. 3 and 1, 2, 3, 4. B is 4. And remember Pythagorean theorem? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So all I would do to find my distance from this point to this point along this line is I would say 3 squared plus 4 squared equals my C squared. And then I'd have 9 plus 25 is equal to, 9 plus 16 is equal to C squared. So if C squared is equal to 25, now I have my 25, 9 plus 16. Do that square root method. And since we're dealing with a distance, we're not going to have a negative. So the length of this side, even though I can't count up and over for it, is going to be 5. All right. So to use the Pythagorean theorem when I don't have a graph, I'm going to have to find my distance between my points by using my distance formula. Okay. And that is, guys, that is this Pythagorean theorem. It says that distance d is equal to the square root. We're starting off with the very last step we took over here. Took the square root, right? Now, how are we going to find the legs? Instead of counting and drawing that triangle, we're going to say x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. So we got to take the square root, x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. Now again, remember, xy, xy. And it's kind of bad practice, but because you are squaring, what order you put your numbers in, as long as you get the x's in the x's and the y's in the y's, you're going to be fine. It's not a good practice. You should always go in the same direction. So this is your problem 24. And I'm going to do 24 and 26 out of your textbook. After I do 24, if I were you, I would go back and do 23. And after I do 26, you should go back and do 25. And just practice what I do. And remember, it's your textbook, and your answers are in the back to check and see if you've got the right answer. But you want to practice problems on your own, not just watch what I do or just, write it down and look at it and use those notes, guys. All right, so distance is equal to the square root x minus x. So negative 1 minus 2 squared plus y minus y is 0 minus 4 squared, right? All right, so I have negative 1 minus 2. So that gives me a negative 3 squared plus, and remember it's important to have that negative because, let me find a little empty spot over here. Negative 3 squared like that is a negative 9, right? But a negative 3 squared in the parentheses is a positive 9, and we're working with them in the positive 9. So negative 4 squared, and I have the square root of this, and the square root of 9 plus 16, because once you square them, they're positive, right? And the square root of 25. So the D is equal to 5. Okay? All right. 2, negative 3, 4, 2. So we got to do the same thing. Hopefully you paused and did your problem 23 to practice and see if you got the right answer. So I have distance, the square root. Remember, x minus x plus y minus y. It's a formula. You follow that formula every time. They can't call it a formula if it doesn't work every time. Now on this one, I went from this point to this point on both of them, and it just doesn't matter. So I'm going to go backwards from this point to this point. So I'm going to have 4 minus 2 squared plus 2 minus negative 3. Be careful. There's this minus that's in the formula, and then that 3 had a negative on it, and you know that's going to change my number quite a bit. 4 minus 2 is 2, so I have 2 squared, plus minus a negative 3, that doubles up that negative, so that's going to be 5 squared, right? Okay, so I have the square roots. 4 plus 25 square root of 29, right? Okay. 29 is a prime number, so that's not going to reduce. But again, please be careful. If your answer does simplify, just like any fraction, let's say we did this problem and we came up with the square root of 32. So just a little side note here in the middle of all this. If I had come up with the square root of 32, 16 is a factor of 32, so I would have the square root of 2 times the square root of 16, right? 2 times 16 is 32. Well, the square root of 2 stays the square root of 2, but the square root of 16 becomes a 4. So don't forget to watch your answers. If it does simplify, you need to do so. All right, so this is just some practice with, does it make a right triangle? Well, remember, if it makes a right triangle, it fits into the Pythagorean theorem. So would the length, the distance of these fit a squared plus b squared equals c squared? So I need the distance of AB, I need the distance of AC, and I need the distance of BC. I need the distance between all 3 points. If it's a triangle, it's going to be 3-sided, right? And AB makes one side, AC makes one side, and BC makes the third side. So I need to see if those 3 sides will fit into the Pythagorean theorem. So AB, I have got the square root of negative 2 minus 12 squared plus the square root of, let's see, I did negative 2 minus 12, so I'm going to do 5 minus 3, right? So that gives me the square root of negative 14 squared. That's going to be a 196, and a 2 squared, so that's going to be a 2. I'm sorry, a 4, right? Negative 14. Negative 14 times negative 14 is 196. 2 times 2 is 4. So this is the square root of 200. Now, when I do a squared and I use the square root of 200 squared, it's just going to be 200, right? So I'm just going to leave that alone for right now. All right, AC. I need to do AC. So again, I'm going to have negative 2 minus 10, x minus x, x minus x squared plus y minus y. Oh, what did I write there for? 5 minus negative 11 minus. See, this is why math teachers always preach to what in math, write with a pencil. All right, negative 2 minus 10 squared plus 5 minus negative 11 squared. So negative 2 minus 10 gives me a negative 12, and that is 144. And negative 11, 5 minus negative 11, that's going to give me a 16. So 16 squared, 256, right? So that's going to give me the square root of 400. Yes? All right. Last one. Now I did AB and AC. Now I need BC. I need the third side. So the square root of 12 minus 10 squared plus 3 minus negative 11 squared. And I think I'm going to get the same thing that I've had up here. I've got 12 minus 10 squared, so that's 2 squared. 12 minus 10 is 2. Squared gives me 4. Plus 3 minus a negative 11. Well, that's a 14. So again, 4 squared and 14 squared. So that gives me another square root of 200. So would the 200 plus the 200 equal the 400? Yes. So that, and I know that these are my legs, because remember, the legs are the two shortest side, the hypotenuse is the longest side. So 200 plus 200 does equal 400. So that is a yes. These three coordinates plotted on a coordinate plane and put in there would create a right triangle. Okay, let's try that one more time. Take a pause, though, before you do that. Take a pause and do problem 33, and then come back and see how you come out with your problem 33. All right? Okay, hopefully you did that and you come back and you're doing good. And I'm going to say I need AB again. So that's the distance between these 2 points. The square root of negative 6 minus 3 squared plus 3 minus a negative 5 squared, right? 3 minus in the formula and a negative on that 5. So that's going to give me a 9. Negative 9 squared plus 8 squared, right? So I've got 81 plus 64. So that's going to give me the square root of 145. 9 squared is 81. 8 squared is 64. 81 plus 64 gives me 145. So AB is the square root of 145. Okay, AC. -6 minus -1 plus, get my square root in here, 3 minus 5 squared. All right, -6 minus a -1 gives me -6 plus 1. So that's going to be a -5 squared plus 2 squared. So that gives me a 25 plus 4. So that's the square root of 29 for that distance, right? So far I have the square root of 145 and the square root of 29. I got to see what my last distance is to see if the two smaller ones will add up to the third largest one. I did AB. I did the distance between AC. Now I have to do the distance between BC. So I have the square root x minus x squared plus y minus y squared. So 3 minus -1. Please be careful of those negatives. A lot of people are going to make an error and write down just 3 minus 1 there, and it's got to be 3 minus a -1. All right, and then plus my y minus y is -5 minus 5 squared. So I have 3 minus -1 is 4 squared plus -10 squared. Now that's going to give me 16 and 100, right? So I've got the square root of 116. Okay. Here's my two smaller ones. So I'm going to say, does 116 plus 29 equal to 145? So 116 plus 25 equals to 141. Right? No, I didn't do that right, did I? 116 plus 29 equals 145. So again, this time my answer is yes. All right, now if you do these problems and it doesn't equal up, like if we had gotten that 141, that's okay. Instead of a yes, your answer is no. Sometimes it's going to be yes, sometimes it's going to be no. All right. Okay, so next on to 1 is just that midpoint formula, right? How do you find the middle of something? Like if you took a long piece of string and you needed it to be cut right in the middle, one thing you might do is just fold it in half so that you're cutting right down the center, right? So when you cut something in half, you divide it by 2. Now, the only thing that's a little bit messed up about the midpoint formula is we are so very, very used to subtracting. Everything is always x minus x, y minus y, everything we do. But when it comes to that midpoint, in order to find something in the middle, we double it up, like folding it over, and then we divide it by 2. So xy, xy. Every time x is first, every time y is second. And I have -2 plus 2 divided by 2. And I always go ahead and work inside like I am because it's called the midpoint. So your answer is a coordinate point, your first one being x and your second one being y. Y plus y, 0 plus 4, divided by 2, right? Negative 2 plus 2, well, that's a 0 over 2. So that is 0. 4 over 2 is 2. What's my midpoint? If I graph these 2 points, negative 2, 0, and 2, 4, right smack in the middle. Let's try to do a real quick one here. Here's my y-axis. Here's my x-axis. My first coordinate point was negative 2, 0. So left 2 and on the x-axis. And 2, 4. Right 2, up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Okay, so I plotted these 2 coordinate points on my graph. And I want to check out where 0, 2 is. 0, 2. Right? There is what I am saying is the midpoint. So if I draw my line through them and I actually see that that's the midpoint, yeah, I can, right? That point is directly in the middle. Whoops, that point is directly in the middle of my 2 outside points that they gave me. So this is my answer, 0, 2. Okay, so I would stop and do problem 39 and then come back with me and let's do problem 42. Okay, hopefully you did 39 and it came out well. So I'm going to do x, y, x, y, right? So I have 2 plus 4 divided by 2. X plus x divided by 2, y plus y divided by 2. Negative 3, 2 divided by 2. Again, this is about the only one where you're going to be adding them instead of subtracting them. So that does make it a little bit more confusing. 2 plus 4 gives me a 6 over 2. Negative 3 plus 2 gives me a negative 1 over 2. So my midpoint is 3 and a negative 1/2. Okay? All right, guys, I'm going to close this one and I'm going to do one for 2, 2. Do practice on your homework. Please get your math labs ahead of time. You really want this stuff done before you come to class so that you know what you understand, you know what you need to ask questions on. All right? All right, guys, have a great day.